Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to have you here. I'm so honored to just be able to spend this evening with all of you. I'm just going to give you guys a couple minutes to get acquainted and to get comfortable. And while you're doing that, just to make sure that all your mics are muted, you're more than welcome to have your video on or off, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Just make sure your mics are muted. So, and I'll just give everyone a moment just to make sure that our mics are muted and to get comfortable. And while we're doing that, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Let me know your name, where you're tuning in from. As you guys know, Black Men Speak Up has men and women of all walks of life tune in from around the world. So knowing where you're from is just so delightful. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrington. I am a talk show host, an author, a mental health advocate. I'm a certified personal development trainer, and I am your host for tonight. This is Black Men Speak Up. It is a monthly program for men. And before we even get into what it's all about, I just want to do, hi, Nadia. I'm going to say some hellos. Hi, Kadani. Hi. I love all of you. We have California. I see Virginia. We have Indiana. I know Fabian and his team, the executive team from Barbados is here. We have Japan. We have Texas. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Hi from Ottawa. Hi, my hometown. I love it. I love spending time with all of you guys. This is great to see. Hi, Whitby. You can't leave out Nick Whitby, right? So as we're saying who we are and where we're from, I'm going to do this part, which is just about some guidelines that we're going to follow. And we want to make sure this is a safe, judgment-free zone. So we'll just bring up some guidelines before we start. And that would be, we always want to keep our mics muted. That would be wonderful if we could continue to do that. Please note that all sessions are recorded. Some content may be triggering. This is an open space where we talk about trauma, healing, emotions. So just want to give that warning. We do have a therapist here from Roots, that is Shane. And so if anyone needs that, he's there as a resource. Also, we always want to keep our comments community friendly. I'm all about community, if you guys know me. Now, when I mean community friendly, obviously no hate speech, and we want to keep everything, maybe we don't always agree, but we want to keep everything 100% respectful. Now, there is a little twist here. This is Black Men Speak Up. So although all walks of life are welcome, all cultures, all genders, we always want the chat to remain a space for men. So women, you're more than welcome to put your comments in the chat. We just want to make sure that we're reminded this space is for Black men. So we don't want to be in conflict with the men. We're here more to learn and grow with them. So I just want to remind you that this is their space, but you're more than welcome to be here, of course. Also, as much as we all want to share our great ideas, I know we all have lots to say and input, please refrain from sharing external links in the chat. They're very distracting and they're not needed at Black Men Speak Up. So no external links, please, no external websites. Also, sometimes, a lot of times, the men or people are expressing their emotions And sometimes as viewers, we always want to help. And that's a great thing. I love that about you guys. So we have some coaches and we have some great people from all different professions, but at Black Men Speak Up, we do have our therapist here. So your advice, maybe we could leave for another session, but not at Black Men Speak Up. Also, we want to refrain from sharing our services and products. Only men could speak with me on the microphone. And please, as much as I love you all, just kindly refrain from messaging when I'm streaming live so that I could be an amazing host for you and I could be a very attentive moderator for the men. So if all that works for you, then all that works for me and we can move forward. So I want to introduce the program, which is Roots. Roots Black Men Speak Up. I'll give you a little bit of background of who Roots is. And they are a community service that has been providing culturally sensitive, enhancing programs for the Black and Caribbean communities in the region of Peel since 1985. The Black Men Speak Up program really aims at helping Black men encourage those who have been in abusive relationships. It really is a space to discuss their trauma and healing. And it really is a space for them to discuss mental health issues. So that being said, I want to bring up a slide, and that slide is from Shane, the counselor at Black Men Speak Up. And what you guys can do if you want from now is you could take a picture of that slide, and Shane is there. He offers from Roots Community Services. He is the counselor. He offers complementary therapy for men who identify as Black. So if you want to take a picture and share that with someone who you may know may need that service, that would be great. So that being said, if we're all good, we could move on right to our segment today and the reason why we're here. We're here for a couple reasons, but one of them that I would be remiss not to discuss is today is the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And the hashtag for today is going to be, if you want to put in the chat, I can't breathe. That will be the hashtag for today. Before we even get started with that, we're going to have 29 seconds of silence in memory of George Floyd. So if we could just close our eyes or whatever makes you feel comfortable, we're going to start in 29 seconds of silence. Thank you for that. You know, I want to just take us back for a second for those of you who may have put it out of your mind or maybe have been bombarded with messages. I just want to remind us that say his name and I can't breathe. These are words that became a worldwide chorus. George Floyd, a 46-year-old man, died on May 25th, 2020, after police responded to a call, the alleged use of a counterfeit $20 bill at a Cup Foods convenience store in Minneapolis. Cell phone video footage shot by bystanders showed police officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Floyd's murder sparked millions of protesters around the world calling for police reform while mourning the death of yet another unarmed Black man. On May 25th, he died. On May 26th, the protest began. On May 29th, Derek Chauvin was arrested and charged. On June 9th, Floyd was laid to rest in Houston. On September 18th, the city renamed the intersection of George Floyd Square at Chicago Avenue and 38th Street, where he took his last breath. On October 14th, supporters celebrated what would have been his 47th birthday. On March 12th, $27 million settlement was given to Floyd's family and it was approved. And on April 20th, Chauvin was found guilty of all 3 counts of second-degree murder, unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and a second-degree manslaughter charge. What I would like to do is I would like to take you back to when the production team and I, 1 week after George Floyd was murdered, we were not seeing a space for Black men to be able to voice their emotions. What we decided to do was make a safe space for Black men because we weren't seeing that anywhere else. I performed a live show on June 20th. To date, it has received almost 15,000 views. And what I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is bring you back in time and show you a segment of a clip that was taken only days after George Floyd had passed away. We aired this episode of the Carrington Show on June 5th, 2020, shortly after the death of George Floyd, to give Black men a voice so that they could share their emotions. What does it feel like to be a Black man and driving and you hear those sirens behind you?
Like you're gonna have a heart attack? Yeah. Like your breath? Worse yet, you have your children in the back of the car and you're wondering if today the day that your children stop looking at you as a superhero because you can't defend them. And now they're looking at you in a way like, Daddy, you tell me to stand up to everybody. You didn't stand up to them. Like, what's going on? I don't understand. So they lose respect for you as well, too. So it's this whole continuous demoralizing thing that's going on. I don't know about anybody, but you get that lump in your throat. So when they come up and try to talk to you, you're like,
in the chest.
Really?
You have to mask whatever traumatizing situations that have happened to you in the past. You have to mask the racism or the bigotry that you've had to deal with, because at the end of the day, you have a life that you have to live. You can either live it in anger, fear, or resentment, or you can push for positivity and be determined to change things for the future. And it's not that we are okay with things because we want things to change. Sometimes we have to smile when we don't want to smile, not for those that aren't Black, but those that are Black. Our children, when we come home and things are bad, or maybe we went through some situation to where, you don't want to bring your entire family down because now your kids are like, what's wrong, Daddy? Or your wife is like, is everything okay? What happened? So if she's scared and they're scared, then everything's a rock. We have this mask that we've learned to put on as children.
Doing this show, I wasn't sure if it was going to make change, but whether I was sure or not, I did it. Conversations matter. These conversations matter. Black lives matter.
State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, defendant. Verdict, count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony. Find the defendant guilty. Count 2, third-degree murder perpetrating an eminently dangerous act. Find the defendant guilty. Count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk. Find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m.
1 year later, commemorating the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, May 25th, 2021. Although there was a guilty verdict, there's still a lot of hurt, pain, trauma, and distress. We need to take action and continue these conversations. There's still a lot of work to be done. That was an emotional piece. And for everyone in the chat, especially the Black men, please feel free. I'm going to ask how that makes you feel. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to bring up my panel of men who will be with me today. And I would like to, Dylan, are you there with me? Can you hear? Thank you. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me here and for being a part of the panel. For those of you who may not know Dylan, he has his master's in business. He is a chartered professional accountant, and he is a father, and he is a Black man. Also, do we have Monty here with me? Hi, Monty. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know, Monty, if you just want to introduce yourself and where you're from.
Monty Burrell from Washington, D.C., currently Japan.
Thank you so much. And you have such a, as a retired police officer, thank you for being here and years of service in the Navy. And we just really recognize everything that you bring to the table, and we appreciate you. Thank you. Also, we have Crooks from Indiana. Crooks, are you here with me?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I could hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for tuning in all the way from Indiana, also a retired officer, and you have so much. Can you just introduce yourself and let people know a little bit of what you do?
Yes, my name is Crux Conception. I'm a retired homicide detective out of Indiana, 24 years of law enforcement. I now go around, well, hopefully soon to be the world again and give lectures on how to use hostage negotiation skills to talk to people and talk about psychology and mental health, which is very dear to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for both of you, Monty and Crooks, for your years of service. I appreciate you and love you. Thank you. And Carlos, are you here with me today?
Yep, I'm here.
Carlos, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything that you contribute. Thank you for your literature, just being an author, a screenwriter. Just appreciate you. Thank you for being here and being so vulnerable. I look forward to hearing everything you have to share. And Kern, are you here with me?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Kern, thank you so much for your years of contribution to the Karen Carrington Show and always being vulnerable, for your literature, for your leadership in the community, and for being a voice for Black men. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Always.
Now that I have my full house, let's get right into it, okay? And Dylan, I'm going to start with you. I want to know the video that we just watched. How did, in your opinion, when you first saw the George Floyd video, how did that make you feel?
Well, first of all, I want to say how blessed and how happy I am to be part of this amazing panel. I am grateful to be part of it with amazing men who speaking up for Black men who be catalysts within our society. So thank you so much for having me. When I first saw this video, I felt sick to my stomach. I felt sick to my stomach because seeing a Black man, someone who could have been me, someone who could have been my uncle, someone who could have been my father, being put to death in the way that he has put to death, it really breaks my heart. But what really breaks my heart more than anything else is that for so long, Black men have been talking about the issue that we have been faced, but no one really paid attention until someone was caught on video. The question that I'm going to ask right now, what if there was no video? What would have happened? What if the cops was not being recorded? What would have happened? And unfortunately, the whole issue of systemic racism is something that is like a pandemic in our world today. You know, after George Floyd, the verdict was passed with the guy who killed him. The head of the UN Human Rights says that systemic racism is something that is even need to be dealt with much more within the states. And I know a lot of us will say, well, who live in Canada will say, well, it's just the states. But I have some shocking news today. It's not just the states, people. It's also in Canada.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you.
There have also been a an article which was being written in Canada, and the survey that was done says that over 50% of the people says that there is systemic racism within Canada. It breaks my heart because I have 2 little boys, and my 2 little boys will be growing up in a country where, in a world where there is systemic racism, that they will be treated differently just because of the color of the skin. So just seeing what happened to George Floyd, it get me sick to my stomach, even today, knowing that the issue still existed today.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. I appreciate you. And Kern, you were with me a year ago when we first were, when the feelings were raw. My question for you is, have your emotions shifted since we went live that day after he was murdered?
Yeah, I would probably say it shifted several times by now. You know, it's been that, I think that the rawness of that picture, of that scene and of that murder mixed with, you know, with the pandemic and everything, I think I felt like my emotions switched a lot. But the one thing I think that's really interesting is for me is that I actually appreciate the fact now that George Floyd was an imperfect person. You know, like I appreciate that so much more now, because I feel like it just shows that the message is so much bigger than the messenger always. You know what I mean? It's so much bigger because Malcolm wasn't perfect, and Martin wasn't perfect, and Muhammad wasn't perfect, and Jesus wasn't perfect. Like the message is always bigger than the messenger, because he was an imperfect, flawed person who died, and his sacrifice, you know what I'm saying, is something we're still talking about today, and literally shifted an entire world upside down. A flawed person that no one here has ever met in real life that I know of, shifted the world like that. So to me, like, that's why the message always has to get carried on. The message has to keep getting pushed. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, like, you're not following every single sentiment that you want to. I think the message is important, and the intent is important, because we have a lot of work to do. Like Dylan was saying, like, we have work to do. So it's important that we kind of keep the message going. That's how I feel. Like, I feel, part of me does feel hopeful, but I feel like we still have a lot to do.
And thank you for acknowledging that we're hopeful, but there's still work to do. And thank you for showing up here tonight. And thank you for everyone who's here tonight helping us do this work, right? And Crooks, my question for you, being in the police force for so many years.
Wow, it didn't surprise me, and we talked about this before. My background with being a psychology and criminal profiler. When Derek Chauvin sat on his neck, I saw how when he folded his arms, basically, and I've seen this with other officers before too, and we'll talk about that later, my reasons for thinking it's a cultural thing more than race. But to him, when they were telling him, get him off his neck, he's dying, he's hurting, he's crying for his mama, and he's sitting there with Derek Chauvin sitting there with that smirk on his face and that his arms crossed. He was telling the crowd, look, you peasants, I got the gun and badge. This is my world. How dare you tell me what to do? How dare you tell me how to do my job? I really believe that George Floyd would be alive today if Derek Chauvin didn't have that attitude, an attitude that I see far too many times in high crime areas or high populated areas of Black and brown individuals.
And I love the way, you're right, we did have that conversation before about his posture, right? And you're picking up on that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Monty, with this similar background to Crooks, being in the police department for years, from that side of the coin, were you shocked by the video?
I wasn't shocked, and at the same time, it was an emotional roller coaster ride because, one, you see a Black man and you're Black, you identify with that. But then two, as a police officer, you're always trained to wait until all the evidence comes out and all the footage, because they can show you one angle and then everybody gets totally emotional and ready to riot. And then next thing you know, other footage comes out. So we're always taught to wait till everything comes out.
Yeah.
So mine was, I can't believe it's happening. I can't believe it's happening. Wait for the whole thing. And then I had tons of people calling me who knew I was a police officer, asked me my opinion. And because I didn't pass judgment so quick, some of them acted funny towards me. But then once it came out, then they understood why I waited and things like that. And you see all the different angles and how far it actually played out. And the whole thing, like I said, his part was completely wrong. But my thing was training of the other officers that just watched. That was horrible to watch.
Mm. And back then, do you think, would you have guessed that Chauvin would have been held accountable back then?
No.
No.
Mm.
No. I think it takes a, like he said, studying someone's personality and everything, it takes someone real nerve to do something broad daylight. It's different. We know a lot of stuff happens at night and undercover with no camera. But when there's cameras and broad daylight, you on a different level of hatred in my eyes.
Good, interesting perspective. I love that. Thank you, Monty. I love you. Thank you so much. And Carlos.
Man, honestly.
Before you answer, you and I had some deep conversations, right? And I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah,
but
no, it's okay.
There's one thing I wanted to really get at with you right away. You and I were saying that we were struggling to watch the video, remember?
Yeah.
And can you just share, and there's no judgment, why you're still having trouble watching it?
Because this is the type of stuff that it's traumatic. And just to like re-traumatize myself, plus my own experiences with the police. And then at the time that this had happened, I was working at a place that was very racist. There were people that had the Confederate flag, and this is in like Brampton, Ontario. There were people that had the Confederate flag tattooed on their arms. They had stickers of the Confederate flag on their lockers. And like our HR, like none of our management cared about it. Everyone just acted like it wasn't anything. And for me, because of the fact that I'm able to go ahead and speak so well and articulate myself really well, I have a lot of I had a lot of Caucasian people that were coming at me and that were like asking me to explain, you know, what Black Lives Matters and talking to me about all lives matter. And then for me to like be composed, I mean, I respect you, Monty, for being able to be like so composed and be so objective. But like for me, I was just really angry because this wasn't the first time that it happened. And a lot of them just kind of like brush it under the rug, or they look for excuses like the police do. And I'm not talking about you guys as police officers, but generally speaking, they look for like excuses of why this type of behavior should happen. And for me, when it was first on my social media, my first reaction was to swipe through, because I didn't want to go ahead and re-trigger myself with my own experience with police officers and with like previous videos that have been shown all over social media. So that was my first reaction. But it just got to a point where I couldn't avoid it. It was on my social media feed. It was at work. My wife was upset about it. So there was just no safe space for me. I couldn't avoid it.
That part about no safe space for you. No safe space. And, you know, I thank you, Carlos, for coming here every month and participating. I'm glad that we could create that safe space for you here.
The question that you asked me is that,
is there someone that's not on mute? Let's just have a friendly reminder to make sure that we're always on mute. So what we're going to do is I want to bring up a slide that has some stats on it, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we want to talk about Black men and mental health and how we could further that conversation and how the impact of the death of George Floyd has on Black men's mental health. So as you may or may not know, I have interviewed hundreds of men around the world from my talk show from seasons 1 to 5. And when I do interviews and surveys, I collect data so that I'm able to share with you guys how men, Black men, different ages of men are feeling. And I think it's really important that we see these answers and we have a discussion about it. So I'm going to bring up a slide. I'm going to have the team bring up a slide. 65% of men surveyed said they had suicidal ideations. Approximately 4,000 Canadians attempt suicide every year, and 75% of those are men. Men often commit suicide due to job loss, divorce, loss of their children in custody. So 4 times amount of men commit suicide. Sometimes we think it's women, but there's a higher rate in men. 88% of men surveyed said they prefer not to speak about their issues as it makes them appear weak, which is not considered masculine. 93% of men surveyed said they turned to substances, promiscuity, addictions, porn, gambling before they realized they needed therapy. So Crooks, I'm going to go right into you. You and me are going to have a conversation like we always do. And that first piece of data where I was saying that there's a high rate of suicidal ideations. Has that ever happened to you?
Funny you mentioned it. You know, these statistics are somewhat accurate, except the last part of where it says, well, I don't know if it's still up there, 65% says job loss, divorce, loss of their children. Well, let me start off by saying June the 14th, 2017, life was good. I was married at the time. My wife and I just built a brand new, beautiful home. It was a castle of our dreams. I was one chapter away from completing my dissertation, being Dr. Jenkins' PhD, forensic psychology. That morning, June 17th, 8 a.m., I woke up with severe back pain. My back was hurting so much, ladies and gentlemen. I went to squad meeting for homicide division, and I ran up the stairs, and I'll never forget, I was hurting so much. I was in tears, and no one knew what was wrong. I'm sitting there in the squad meeting before I go back to my office and go to my desk, and next thing you know, I just take the day off, take a personal day. In my car, I go to the doctor, get prescribed medication, get 3 injections in my back because the back pain was so terrible. The doctor then prescribed me some pain medication for my back and muscle relaxers. Now, this muscle relaxer was unbeknownst to my physician and myself at the time, was known to cause and still known to cause bipolar, rare occasions bipolar effects in individuals. Went back home that day, woke up at 1 o'clock that morning 1 o'clock that morning the following day, wanting to kill myself. I don't know. I just thought I said to myself, I don't deserve to live. I'm the worst father in the world, worst husband in the world. I've never experienced this person outside of my body. And I took a half a glass of vodka, because when you read the instructions, when you take your medication, it says don't take alcohol with it. Well, I wanted to die so bad, I drank a half a glass of vodka. I still wasn't dead. I'm so upset. I take the whole bottle of muscle relaxers, whole bottle of pain medication, and I'm still not dead. And then it dawned on me, my wife and I just built this house. I'm not gonna have excuse my language, I'm not gonna have my brain splattered all over a brand new house we just built, and that's gonna be a memory. So I was so high, ladies and gentlemen, I literally can see myself today pressing the sunroof on my personal vehicle, but I was in my unmarked squad car. I loaded my 357, my off-duty 357, spent the Wesson up, put it on the side of my off-duty, of my squad car, and I'm heading to Krieger Park about 2 miles away to go kill myself. Luckily, I don't know what it is, but a lot of people say it was an act of God, it was intervention, but the only thing I'm grateful for that happened that night was that I didn't kill anybody and no one got hurt. My vehicle rolled into a curb and I passed out. and at a light, and a gentleman saw my vehicle. And in the state of Indiana, all police vehicles have a municipal license plate, and it has a badge on it to let people know it's a city-owned or state-owned vehicle, and it's a law enforcement vehicle. So he described that to 911. 911 came, I mean, officers, state police, fed, everybody and their mom came rushing, lights and sirens, because all they knew was that there was an officer who was hurt. I get there, they asked me what was I doing. I said I'm going to Crater Park to kill myself, and then I was taken to jail. The governor, our former Vice President Mike Pence, he was the governor of the state of Indiana. He wrote a protocol. There was a protocol established for all law enforcement officers in the state of Indiana that if they confront someone who has psychological issues or is a threat to himself and others and wishing to die, then they get transported to get psychiatric help instead of going to jail, because that was the problem with mental health and law enforcement for so long. The officers didn't know what to do. They just sent them to jail, and they, on their docket, charging docket, said it was alcoholic related offense, and they stopped doing that. But in my case, they didn't. When they realized they messed up, the next morning, they took me to a psychiatric facility and kept me there for 7 days. Now, where the PTSD, because I was diagnosed PTSD after that, came the fact that there's 17 of us in law enforcement. All these officers know all my people. They knew my wife. They knew everyone. No one knew what happened to me until 3 days later. Nobody knew where I was, not my family members or anything. These officers were so quick to go text their buddy or send screenshots of my mugshot to other officers, but they wouldn't call my family members. So that's where I'm at so far with this story. I don't know if I took up too much.
No,
Okay.
I could hear that story over and over again with you.
Okay.
You and I have talked about that for a long time.
And we talked about it, and I hate to say this, but I was that house. I was their boy. You open up my Internal Affairs record, my jacket, there was no complaints on me. Never got suspended, nothing. And they were my family. And to see them wave goodbye, I could still see myself in that green. Green is for suicidal subjects. Orange is for regular subjects in jail. Green is for suicidal subjects. I can see them to this day still waving goodbye to me as they left me there.
I remember that scene that you and I talk about when you saw that final goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing that, and that I didn't talk about it for like 2 years. It happened about 2-3 years ago, and I haven't talked about it that much because I didn't want to sound like the angry black man, because that's what they want. And I didn't want to sound like the angry black man. And now I'm able to talk about it. When I used to talk about it, I used to tear up and cry because Ms. Carrington, that there's more to it than that. But that takes 4 shows. So
I was going to say that's season 7.
Yeah, that's season 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what I love about that story is that you plant the seed and that you let my entire audience know that those feelings exist and that happened, and that you're a man that comes with so many credentials and so much, and it can happen to any of us.
It can. And talking about this, I want to end it on this. I'm looking at the camera right now on my screen, on my computer. And when I was telling that story, I had to blink the screen because as a black man and as a man who, had power or strength or, the things that give us the stigma to not want to talk about it was here right now, because this is the first time I talk about it really open in front of a large crowd like this, and a crowd predominantly of color. And I literally went and blinked my screen so I wouldn't see your reactions, because what did I say when I told you yesterday about the story? I said, don't judge me. Yeah,
I know. And remember what did I say back to you?
No judgment here. Yeah.
And, we have Fabian, the executive from Barbados, saying, it's really proud of you. Everyone's so proud of you. And you know what? This space that I create for you guys is exactly that. You guys do what you need to do. You need to blank it out. You need to do that. Whatever it takes for you to feel safe and comfortable, that's what this platform is all about. So I thank you for sharing that. And you know what? I bet that by you sharing that, other Black men will be, it'll give them the courage to share as well. So thank you. I love you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love you so much. And Dylan, we were just talking about that graph about suicidal ideations from Black men. You and I have had so many conversations about that. Was there a time that you did that, something similar?
Wow, I'm really happy to be here. Can't believe I'm really opening up about my mental health. So, Cox, I want to say, man, thank you so much for just being a hero for all of us as you talk about your issue. And also, I just want to say, before I get into it, thanks to Shane Joseph for empowering me to be able to talk about that issue, because it takes a lot of courage for someone like me to be able to talk about something like this on live TV. Because right now, I understand now it's okay not to be okay. And absolutely. So growing up in the Caribbean, it's very difficult for me to talk about my mental health, especially being part of the church community and being a Black man, because people oftentimes, when they hear someone with mental health, you become like an obsolete in society. You become like a product that is no longer good. So for me, I was diagnosed when I was 21 with anxiety, depression. But I said to myself that I don't want to have no dealings, no association with something like that. So I pretend to not have those issues, because I wanted to be accepted in the church as a good Christian. I wanted to be accepted within my community as a good man, as a man without any problems. And so I pretend that I didn't have it. I was walking around like everything was fine, but it was all a lie. Until after my separation, when I hit rock bottom. And when and it was too much for me to deal with, because for so long I was living a lie. I was pretending that everything was okay with me because I wanted everyone to approve me, but I was dying on inside with my anxiety and with my depression. And I remember after I got separated, I was up in the night late drinking alcohol to numb myself. And one time I said to myself, you know what, F this, I'm tired of this bullshit. I don't want to live anymore, because of the pressure and because of the expectation that I felt like everyone else have for me. And I wanted on the highway just run my car in the back of a vehicle, because I didn't want to do this shit anymore. I didn't want to live anymore. I was tired of this whole thing. And so I know exactly how it feels, but I just want to say to us as Black men, it's okay to reach out to get help. And that's why this brother Shane Joseph, man, you are one of my heroes, because I didn't want to do this anymore. I had enough. It was too hard for me. But right now, as a Black man, we are not alone, right? Cox, I feel I'm not alone just by hearing your story. I feel I'm not alone because we as Black men, we shouldn't be afraid to admit that we are not okay, right? But also it's okay to also get help. And that's something that I realize, and I'm grateful that I've talked to this brother, and this brother empowered me, and he told me the importance of having counseling. And you know what, man? I'm even going to counseling even right now all the time, because you know what? I understand that I have mental health issues, right? And it's okay not to be okay. But it's also okay to get help. And we all will overcome that issue. So men, as you listen to me and listen to my story, those of you who might be at home, if you have that issue, it's okay to confront your issue. It's okay to admit that you have an issue, and it's okay to get help.
Thank you so much. And it's okay for you to share what you just shared. You know, I'm just so proud of you for sharing that story. I'm proud of you for getting help. I'm proud of you for coming every month to Black Men Speak Up by hearing stories and sharing your story. So Dylan, thank you. And I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you. And Carlos, Mm.
Man,
Man, man.
all three of those. Honestly, I've been all three of those in different orders.
I know you have a what I admire about you, Carlos, is you have a lot of layers to you. And if it's okay, I just want to ask you a specific question because you know all the talks that we've had, there's different things that you've been through. And when it comes to suicidal ideations and toxic masculinities, did you ever have those thoughts as well?
Yeah. 2019, I went to Vegas with my best friend. And that year I was going through a lot. So I had told everyone that I was getting a divorce. My ex, who I have a child with, I was trying to set boundaries with her because I was trying to like get my life together. I felt like one chapter with my wife and I were ending, and I was just trying to establish boundaries so that I can just get my life together and have access to all my kids. And both of them were just like threatening to take my kids away from me. And then that in combination with the psychological and verbal abuse that I was going through at work. When I was in Vegas, I had been arguing and I just told my wife that, you know what, this is actually how I'm gonna go ahead and kill myself. You can go ahead and do whatever you want. I'm gonna go ahead and kill myself. And since I'm not enough for you, you can just take the insurance money and you can just go ahead and do whatever it is that you need to go ahead and do. Because it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how hard I work or what I sacrifice. It's never enough. She went ahead and she told my best friend, who was in another room at the time. And his response to her was, he's just trying to get attention. So when I already knew that I couldn't talk to him about it, but I already knew I couldn't talk to him about it. But anyway, he eventually came into the room to check on me because my wife had called him and she was crying on the phone. And he was like banging on the door and he's like, if you don't go ahead and open this door right now, I promise you I'm gonna call security and have him go ahead and open this door for you. So he came in the room and we chatted. And he's like, okay, what's going on? And of course I didn't feel comfortable talking to him, especially after hearing what my wife had just said. So I was like, look, honestly, respectfully, it doesn't really matter what you have to say. And it doesn't matter what my wife has to say, because as soon as this trip is over, I already know how I can go ahead and kill myself. And there's nothing that you or anybody else can go ahead and do to stop me at the end of the day. And then it wasn't until one of my female friends had gone ahead and just put it into perspective, the mistake I would be making if I had gone ahead and made that decision, because then my son would be growing up without a father, and then he would be the cycle that I had experienced when I was younger. It would have just had continued, and I would have been, because my father died when I was 3 years old, right? So I would be abandoning him the way that my father didn't. Well, he didn't abandon me, but the way that my father just wasn't there for me. So it was that perspective that really just had me make sure that I went ahead and just, got the help that I needed, and I changed my perspective. I spent a lot more time with God, and now I'm just an advocate, because I know what it's like to be alone and not have anybody to talk to, not even your friends you can go ahead and talk to, because in our community, it's like this stuff doesn't happen to us. We're supposed to be tough all the time. Like men aren't supposed to cry. Men aren't supposed to have feelings. We're supposed, especially when you're Black, we're supposed to go ahead and live up to the stereotypes of us being like thugs, or the hypersexualization of us, of our manhoods. So yeah. So I mean, again, with what Dylan had said, I do think that if there's anybody that's out there that's listening, I totally get what it's like not to have safe spaces when it comes to like your friends, when it comes to people at work, or even when it comes to like your partner. But I urge you to go ahead and get a third party. I know that we have Shane here at Roots, and I myself have actually personally gone ahead and spoken to Shane. And sometimes it just helps just having somebody to vent to, and just somebody that will go ahead and just empathize with your pain, rather than just keeping it all inside and just feeling silence.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember on the graph, it was saying that sometimes men turn to promiscuity to get over or substances. Just, I guess, in a yes or no, you don't have to go into detail. Did you ever do that?
Addiction, yeah, substances, marijuana. And for me, I would just smoke until I could just like not feel anything. Because for me, I was just trying to escape. And if I couldn't, I was just addicted to just validation from women, addicted to sex, addicted to alcohol, whatever I could do to take my mind away from my issues, whether it was like with my wife or my ex or like my job, I would just go to there, whatever I could do to make me feel better. Mm-hmm. Even sex didn't even feel good for me for like a while because I wasn't doing it for the right reasons.
I remember you said that. I remember you were saying that what I admire about you is that you were able to realize that that's what you were doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. Thank you for your vulnerability and your authenticity, Carlos. I appreciate you. Mm-hmm. And Monty, we're talking about suicidal ideations. I know in your career, you've seen a lot of men having those thoughts. And I remember you and I would talk a lot about that. In your opinion, why do men not want to share that they have those thoughts? Because you said you've seen it a lot, but then in your opinion, from all those suicide attempts that you've seen, and if you care to share to us, there is someone that you know that has done that as well, correct?
Okay, I'm sorry. A lot of times they believe that I'm a weakness. And I think everybody has to have a support group. And without that support group, it does appear that you are weak because you're kind of this person floating around like, help me. And you don't want everybody to know that you're that in need right now. But when you have that support group, you can go behind closed doors and get the help that you need. Because I had a strong support group, and I'm not talking down on anyone else, but basically my support group knew my body language and everything. So it wasn't even a point of me coming there and lying. They could read me. But others that I knew that did it, I didn't know the signs because I wasn't around when it happened. And I wish they did have somebody there. So a lot of them, they followed through with it because no one was there.
Got it. They followed through because nobody was there. Got it. That makes sense. And I'm just going to move on to Kern. Kern, on the graph, there was a stat that says 93% of men surveyed, that they would not tell their partner or someone that they're potentially dating that they deal with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And I saw your smile, right? And so that's a high number of men who would not want to disclose that to a potential partner. In your opinion, why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's pretty much everyone. That's a wild stat. I think a lot of it really comes down to insecurity. You know, I think Monty said something really important. Like, he has a support group. I think the responsibility of uplifting our community is like on us. Like, I think it's on like me to talk to that other person so that other person knows that it's okay to talk like how we're talking today. Like, I think it's up to me to make sure that the people around me feel like that, because if they're going off of history, or if they're going off of the area they're growing up in, or if they're going off of what they see on TV, or if they're going off of rap music or something like that, like, they're going to feel a certain way about admitting whatever they want to, like, I feel, like I'm having these thoughts, or like, I feel if I say this, I'm going to feel weak, or I'm going to look a certain way. Like that, it's up to the people around them to change that narrative, because they're they're growing up into that kind of like fire that tells them that no, it's not okay to be. And I want to say this really quickly too, because I don't want to make it sound like, I don't want to demonize masculinity all the way. Like it's I think it's okay to be masculine. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I don't want people to be like masculine negative. Like I really don't want people to say that. I think there's some really, really positive traits with masculinity that could kind of align with leadership and strength and positive. Like there's good things about being masculine. So I don't want to do it like that. That's why I said insecurity. I think people are more insecure about how they feel about themselves, because if you're someone who's comfortable with who you are, you don't give a shit about what anybody thinks about you. You'll be able to be like, man, I had a terrible day today and I feel like crying. And you could say that, but you know how it takes a lot of comfort with yourself and a lot of strength within yourself. And your self-esteem has to be really, really high for you to do that, especially at a young age. These are things that I'm just realizing right now. I'm in my 30s. So you know what I'm saying? So it takes a lot of that. So it's up to the community to really like create the spaces. Like I'm looking through, so while you're talking, so I was scrolling through to see how many people are here, Karen, and holy shit. And just like how you do this over and over again. But think about the impact that you're having on these communities every month, and then people take this back and then they go make more connections. Like we need 1,000 Carringtons. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to replicate you 1,000 times just to put a smaller dent into this thing, because the impact, what you're doing here is what we need to be able to do in our everyday lives, you know, to give our community a chance, to get rid of the toxic part of the masculinity and the toxic part of that expectation that you have to be tough. Like we have to get rid of that, the toxic part of that stuff, and turn that into something that could be beautiful, and something that you could turn masculinity into leadership, and not think that having soft traits are negative. Like we need to really take care of ourselves. So for me, that's like, as I'm listening to everyone, that's what I'm always thinking about. That I'm like, man, like that support group, that support system, and especially what Monty said, they did that because they weren't there. Look, like I hope everyone heard that. Like they did that because they weren't there. They, meaning their friends, weren't there. The people around them weren't there. That means if they were there, they would not have done that. Look at the story Carlos just told. Carlos just told a story of someone that he did not even like, someone that he could not even talk to, but because they stepped into the room, they made a difference. And he did not even like this person. Think about the power of that. You know what I'm saying? Like we just need to be there for each other, and tell that young person every single day that it's okay to talk like that. And if they're not listening, you tell them again, and then you show them, and then you hug them. And then, like, I know Carlos personally, so I know he kisses his sons and he hugs them every single morning. Like we need to do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I'm looking at everything.
Kern, first of all, thank you. Thank you for saying that, for doing this every month. You never know who's listening and who's watching. And when I speak to each of you on the panel, I have a personal relationship with each of you. And when I speak of your stories, and I said these stories need to come out, you never know. We have people from all around the world tuning in who has heard your story and that you have impacted. So I just want to congratulate you on the panel for showing up and for being so vulnerable. You never know whose life you have saved today. I also want to thank, even like you said, Kern, everyone for showing up. The support for showing up is so, so needed. And for doing this every month, I just thank this platform that we can do this in a safe space. Thank you so much for that. And, you know, I also never want to just have these conversations and leave people without tools or resources on where do we go from here? What do we do after this conversation is when we go back into our spaces? Where do we go? And so I want to make sure and leave you guys with some kind of tools that if you know a Black man, your father, your son, your uncle, a friend who expresses that they're having issues, what do you do with that? So I'm just going to bring up a slide with, some tools that you guys could be helped with. So because it's National Awareness Month, Number one, the first thing that I want to say that's really important is become better informed. By you guys coming to spaces like this, by being informed, that's the first thing you could do for Black men to help them, because they're still living these experiences today. Even though it's a year later, they will be living these experiences for future to come. So become better informed. The second one, ask what you can do. If a Black man shares with you, ask what you could do. I know sometimes we like to offer our help. First, ask, what is it I can do for you? The third thing that's really important, don't blame, don't judge, don't listen. Do listen, do listen. Don't blame or judge, do listen. Number 4, suggest appropriate supports. Have them go somewhere where they can get some help, especially here, like Black Men Speak Up. And number 5, what's really important, I really, 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 really want to emphasize this. If you have a Black man in your circle or in your network that you're trying to support, you're not able to support them if you're not taking care of yourself. And like Fabian saying, support for men is critical. So make sure you're also taking care of yourself when you're trying to take care of someone else. You're not able to support or provide support if you're not taking care of yourself. Also, that point where I said, don't judge or blame, like all the men on the panel here, they express that, oh, they did this or they did that. Sometimes it's really easy for us to say, well, if you didn't do that, then this wouldn't have happened. If you weren't sleeping around, this wouldn't have happened. If you're paying more attention, let's try not to judge and just listen. It's really, really challenging for Black men to open up in the first place. So when they do, let's just be understanding. And I see Michael's comment about you see a lot more women on the line. And yes, I noticed that too. Thank you, women, for being here, because even though it's called Black Men Speak Up, I truly believe spaces like this, when us women can come and learn from the men and be attentive, I believe that we all heal and grow as a community together. So thank you to all the women that have showed up and just take this all in. And also, another thing that I would like to do is I would like to just, if we could put back in the chat the hashtag, we want to remember why we're here for the anniversary, I Can't Breathe. Everybody put I Can't Breathe. And what we're going to do is after the show, we'll make sure and just choose a Black man. And we want to gift you with $100 Walmart cards. We want to gift Black men that really need it, Black men that are seeking support, Black men that are alone, that are trying to do better, that are single dads. So that will be confidential. We will confidentially reach out to you, and we'd like to bless you with that on behalf of Roots Community Services. We believe that these type of things, you matter, your life matters. We understand it's a difficult time. So if you just want to hashtag I Can't Breathe, I want to make sure that we reach out to you. We'll be selecting randomly and be able to bless you with that. You will be contacted. Also, what I want to do is if we could bring up Shane's slide one more time for people to be able to take a picture and be able to contact him. If you're a man who identifies as Black, you're able to contact Shane, free therapy. Don't have to have your video on, don't have to say, who you are, just want to have a chat. He is there for you. So you could email or call. Another thing that I want to do before I close out that I think is really important is I want to be able to say hi to some of you. I never really get a chance to do that. So Nellie, tuning in from the States, I love you. Hi, what's up? Fabian from Barbados, thank you so much for being here. Maurice, Tracy, thank you so much for being in the newsletter this month. Kradim, we have Nicole, Bonnie, Natasha, thank you for coming. Everil, Kadani, I appreciate you and I love you. I see Randy. Randy, thank you so much for being here. You have watched absolutely every show since 2017. Thank you. Also, I just want to, I I see Angela. Angela, thank you so much for being here, the executive director of Roots. Thank you so much for your support and your vision and everything that you do for Roots. So that's Angela Carter, the executive director, Christy, Andre, Yvonne Lee, Colin, Rianne, Joshua, Janine, thank you also from Roots, Trisha Booth, I love you, Rohan, Fitzgerald, John, Alethea, I love you, Maxine, thanks for being here, Kendra, thank you from Brampton, Patricia Wilson, I appreciate, I adore you, Jolene, thank you so much, Debbie, Jermaine, Marlon, I don't want to miss anybody, Ryan, Kimberly, so much, Glenroy from Jamaica, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to make sure to acknowledge all of you, Andrea, Christopher Miller, Colin, thank you so much for being here, Anita, Joshua, I see so many people from England, from UK, I see my friend from Australia here, Mike, Damney, thank you for being here, Glenroy, thank you. Album from Atlanta, Album, thank you from all the way from Atlanta for tuning in. Thank you so much, Ashley. Omar, I see you. I respect you. I value you. Thank you for being there with your little one. Thank you so much. I don't want to miss anybody, but I thought it was really important because sometimes we say their name when they passed away, but why don't we just say each other's name and lift each other up while we're here too? Say your names. You all matter. Black lives matter. So what I would like to do also is before we close out, I would like to take time just to thank the production team so much. Thank you so much for putting all the tech together. The tech makes this a safe space. So thank you so much for technically always doing everything for me in the background and making sure that everything's smooth without your skills and talent. Just thank you so much. Shane, thank you so much for your continuous excellence and the support that you provide for these Black men. We just thank you. All the ladies for tuning in. Thank you so much. And what I want to do is, we always end off with a affirmation from my book, Shame Over. Thank you so much for everybody who has purchased a copy. It's available on Amazon. And I wrote this book especially for men and mental health. And there's chapters in there from guests from my shows, stories that you've heard here, brave men that were willing to share their story. There's tips in here of how to deal, acknowledge, cope, and heal from your mental distress. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pull up the slide with the affirmation from Shame Over. And it comes from, I am a powerful Black man. My life matters. My mental health is a priority, and I ask for help when I need it. I am a powerful Black man. My life matters. My mental health is a priority, and I ask for help when I need it. I always encourage Black men to repeat that in the mirror every day, right at yourself. Whether you believe it or not, the more you repeat that, you're going to believe that. And just know that we're here for you. So I would just like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being so vulnerable. Thank you for being here to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd. What the host is going to do and the production team is they're going to exit you out of the show. But before they do that, just know that I love you all. I am here for you. We'll bring up my screen with my website. If there's anything that you need from me, you're more than welcome to send me an email on my website. I am here for you. Roots is here for you. Production team, if you want to bring up your slide, thank you so much for your countless hours. Thank you so much. And to everyone, thank you for being a Black Men Speak Up. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Anita. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Miller. Thank you, Michael. I love you. Thank I love you too. I love you Thank you, Nadia. I love you. Thank you. I'll call you. From California. Thank you for taking the time to tune in from California. Thank you, Andrea. Nellie, I know there are good stories, right, bro? I know.